Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's meeting of the City of Burnside Council of 26 July 2022, opening at 7 p.m. Given the recent surge in COVID-19, I encourage you to wear your mask and socially distance where possible. As you can see, the gallery for tonight has been placed in the foyer just to keep everyone safe. The deputies are allowed to come in and speak and are allowed to remove their masks if required when speaking. As we know, the mayor is an apology for tonight, and under section 3.14 of our code, I would like to seek any volunteers to take up the role of presiding member tonight. Do I have any volunteers?
I nominate Councillor Davis.
Councillor Davis, would you like to accept the nomination?
Yes.
Excellent. And Councillor Piggott, would you like to accept the nomination?
Thank you, Jenny. I'd actually like to speak on a number of motions tonight. I've witnessed the previous mayor not being able to do that, so I'll decline.
Sure. Thank you, councillors.
Can I nominate Councillor Hubel?
Sure. Councillor Hubel, would you like to accept the nomination?
I will.
Excellent. So I've got Councillor Davis and Councillor Hubel. So what we might do now is we will draw a name from the box. So I'll just go and grab some names for you. So I do have the two names here. We have opted for a different mechanism.
Sure.
Oh, no, we'll do. Councillors, we'll go through the proper mechanism and we'll adhere to our code of practice. Thank you. And I've got the two names in here, and the one I pick out will be the presiding member for tonight. So I've got Councillor Davis. Thank you, Councillor Davis, and thank you, Councillor Hubel. That's just an agenda.
Cool. So just open and stand.
Yep.
Off we go. All right.
Yep.
Councillors, could you please stand for the opening of the meeting? I declare this meeting open at 7:03. We acknowledge the land that we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge that the Kaurna people, as the custodians of the Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to the Kaurna people today. We pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting or attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who gave their lives for this country and its people. We seek understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all those who reside, study, work in and visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. So we have emergency procedures in place, and so we're encouraging you all to wear your masks tonight due to the recent outbreak of COVID-19 in the City of Burnside Council. I'd like to let everyone know, councillors and those in the gallery, that we're being live streamed. We will be using our queuing system tonight, so please bear with me. First time I'm giving that a go. Please ensure that your mobile phones are turned off, particularly in the public gallery, and we do have a public gallery open tonight. Do we have any, I'll move on to item 6, which is absences. Are there any apologies? So we have 3 apologies from, so we have 3 apologies from Mayor Monceau, Councillor Cornish and Councillor Hughes. There are no absences and there is no leave of absences. Does any member have a declaration of interest for tonight? No. We'll move on to item 8, confirmation of the minutes. Can I please have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Dawes, and a seconder. Councillor Davey, thank you. All those in favour, the minutes be accepted. All those against, that's carried. There's no adjourned business. Public presentations, public question time.
I don't believe there's anyone for public question time.
Are there any questions from the gallery? No. There are no presentations, but we do have one deputation, potentially two deputations. Yeah. Well, we'll start with the deputation 10.3.1, financial assistance support from Kenzie Gardens Bowling and Tennis Club. I would like to invite Mr. Ken Watson to come to the stage.
Thanks very much.
Oh, I see. Cool, thank you. Ken, thank you for joining us this afternoon, or this evening. You'll be given 5 minutes to speak. Now at 4 minutes you'll hear a bell, and then they'll hear another bell at 5 minutes. So we'll begin that timer when you're ready.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for everybody for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. As you heard, my name's Ken Watson. I'm a resident of Burnside, living at 14 Grey Avenue, Beaumont. But as you know, I speak tonight not for myself, but as the chair of the Board of Management of the Kensington Gardens Bowling and Tennis Club. Kensington Gardens Bowling and Tennis Club is a proud Burnside institution, situated in an idyllic location in the northeastern corner of the magnificent Kensington Gardens Reserve. We celebrated our centenary during the 2018-19 season. Naturally, as a club of that age, we have ageing facilities, and we're currently developing a master plan for the upgrading and modernising of those facilities. We are aware that Council has provided grant assistance to some other sporting clubs for clubroom developments, and in due course we may be seeking that sort of support, but as you know, that's not what we're after tonight. For now, we're simply seeking assistance through a loan to enable us to replace 2 artificial bowling greens. As we reflected on the club's missions and goals and what is needed to achieve those goals, our Board of Management established a very clear and important principle that the most fundamentally important resource for the club must be high quality playing surfaces, so tennis courts and bowling greens. Our 2 artificial greens do not, unfortunately, meet the high standard demanded, and over the last few years we have suffered considerable reputational damage as a result. The loss of some members, the potential loss of more, and the difficulty of attracting new members demands immediate action for us to correct this situation. You will have read in the report prepared for this meeting that our working party examined the situation and recommended replacing those greens with XL greens to be installed by a company called KCL from Newcastle in New South Wales. Thorough checking with many bowling clubs has satisfied us that this is a very well-established company with an outstanding record for providing very satisfying results with the installation of new artificial greens. Our club is in a very strong financial position, and we want to provide for our own needs. But in the short term, we cannot quite manage it on our own. Therefore, we seek a loan of $120,000 to be repaid over 5 years. Your support now will enable us to get over this little hump and move forward with confidence to continue providing high-quality recreational and sporting activity and communal fellowship to a large and, we hope, growing number of people at our club. I thank you in anticipation of your support.
I'll now open up to questions from members, if you're happy to take them, Ken.
Certainly.
The first question I had was Jenny. Oh, Councillor Turnbull, I should say.
Thank you. I'll take the mask off to speak. Could you please explain to us about the Merrittville Trust that is set up at the Kensington Gardens Bowling and Tennis Club? Because it has money in it.
Yes, it does. The Merrittville Trust was established, well, the history to it is that there was a Merrittville Bowling Club which existed essentially where Woolworths now is on Kensington Road. That club folded about 1995, I think it was, as the numbers declined. In the end, after a lot of considerations about what they were going to do, the existing members voted to amalgamate with Kensington Gardens Bowling and Tennis Club at that stage. They sold the land, and the money from that land, after paying other debts and so on, was put into a trust. And there's a group of trustees who have the responsibility to manage that trust.
Sorry, a follow-up question if I may. Have you considered using that money in the Marrickville Trust Fund to fund the new greens? I mean, some partly, it said in the report
Yes.
the sum was going to be, but what about all of it?
Unfortunately, that choice is not ours, in the sense that the choice to spend money is made by the trustees. We may make a request for help from the Marrickville Trust. It's important to understand the relationship between the trust and the club. The trust is a completely independent group of people, and that's not quite true. They are club members, so in that sense they're not completely independent, but they're not people that are involved in any of the administration, management and governance of the club. Their bylaws prevent that. So their main obligation is to follow the details as set out in the trust deed. And one of their considerations is always to maintain the size of the fund. And so they have supported us quite a lot, and they're certainly willing to support this project. But their preference is for us as a club to be funding it to a significant degree as best we can ourselves with their help. They're also very aware that we will have other projects coming up. You know, as I mentioned, our club room facilities really are a little dated, and there will be significant projects that we're looking forward to over the next few years. And so from the trust point of view, it's important for them to retain their funds as well, not just spending them all immediately now.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Ken. I wanted to look at it from the risk element,
Yes.
not the risk that you won't be paying it back, because you've already demonstrated that
Yes.
with the previous loan. But can I say that the service you chose, which only lasted 6 years, which is probably last at least 10, I would think, did you just choose the wrong surface, or was it the base that's the concern?
There are some people who believe there are some flaws with the surface itself. The general consensus is that the fundamental problems are to do with the way the base is constructed. There's a number of different theories about exactly why that is, but it's generally agreed that that is the nature of the problem. The sort of problems that we've experienced have indeed, they're not exclusive to our club. It's been occurred, where I'm aware of a number of clubs that have had
The same product.
same sort of product, and there's quite a number of clubs who went into a decision, perhaps at a time similar to the time we did, thinking that it was a good thing to do, only to find that it wasn't. And quite a number of clubs have done what we're now wanting to do, and that is to replace it.
So my second question, Chair, is with the 460,000, how much is that for the synthetic surface, and how much is it for the base? You could do some work on the base, you said.
I can't really make that distinction. in the
Right, they
sense
put it
that
all together.
Because there's a package of a total 408,000, I think was the quote, which was the total package for the surface and the base and so on. My assumption is that the majority is actually the base, because that's where most of the work goes.
Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thank you for coming along tonight, Ken.
Thank you.
My question is, following on from Councillor Dawes' query, is about the surface. And some of the chatter I've heard around is that the playing area is hot and dry and not pleasant to play in. And I wonder if that's because there's no shade there. It's really quite a barren, open place, especially on warm days. And that the artificial turf, which you're the only club in the area, I believe, that has that, is also, I mean, it's a very hot surface to play on. Have you actually thought of returning back to lawn bowls and actually going back to that traditional surface, which is, I believe, more environmentally sound?
Yes, our investigations, I was, at the time that we started off on the path of exploring this, we established a working party. As the chair of the Board of Management, I was very clear that of the direction to the working party that they would investigate all possibilities, right from going back to grass, reworking the existing surface to see if it could be repaired, replacing it with other alternative surfaces, and if so, to investigate all the possibilities there. So in very short terms, yes, all of those possibilities have been considered. I think a majority of bowlers would say, yeah, we would all rather play on grass. For all sorts of reasons, it's nicer to play on it, it's a more friendly surface, and perhaps as a playing environment it has some advantages. You referred to the issue of heat on the greens. Our particular green, the current surface, is not too bad as in comparison with many. One of the observations that was, our working party went to a number of different places where there are artificial greens. I'll just pick up a couple of clubs that provide examples. Gawler Bowling Club, a whole group of people went out there and played, and they came back saying, no way we want those, they're far too hot underfoot. You referred to other clubs nearby. There is one nearby, Tranmere have got artificial greens as well, and theirs is a fairly hot surface, and because of that they've actually put a shade colour thing over the top that can be retracted or can be brought out. In very simple terms, our working party, when they bowled on various surfaces, including at Two Wells and at Playford and at Port Noarlunga, which have these XL greens, one of the important things that they saw in favour of the XL greens was that they were cooler than the majority of the other alternative surfaces. So we were aware of it at that point. Yes, so in short, it's probably not perfect, but we're satisfied that it's the best option for us. Does that answer your question?
Thank you for that clarification. I'm not sure that it does. The other thing that problem I have is that you're located in our award-winning park now. We've invested a huge amount in the park. And we've got those wonderful wetlands and upgraded a whole lot of facilities. Do you not think your facility is now out of character with that park, in that it's again, I'll come back to it's not green and leafy, and it's really doesn't fit the character of the park without any shade trees, which I don't understand how people wouldn't have any shade trees when they're playing golf. And it's just a very open, barren space.
I understand your point. At one level. At another level, I would respond by saying we regard our location as being our greatest single asset. It is magnificent to sit in our club rooms and look out over the parklands, particularly from the upstairs section. Looking out over the parkland the reserve is just a wonderful vista, and that includes the trees. The trees are a bit of a two-edged sword. They're not all upside. Yes, it's nice to have shade on a really hot day. On the other hand, late into the afternoon, sometimes it actually gets cold because of the shade, but more importantly, we do have a couple of very beautiful big gum trees quite close to our sea green, and that does actually cause some problems, in particular because they're such big trees. Their root system extends across to where the grass is this, and it detracts a little bit from our surface. As it happens, there also are trees that are occupied by corellas, which come and damage our grass greens at times, but it's a small negative. They are small. I'd endorse your comments. I think, you know, our reserve is a jewel in our district area. I honestly had never thought of our club as being out of line with that, because bowling clubs generally are not full of trees and shade and so on. We do like to have shade, but we don't generally have trees around bowling clubs.
Thank you, Ken. There's obviously a number of issues there. Councillor Turnbull.
I'm sorry, I have another question too, because I've played on your greens, or not greens, and they're awful, so I'll go with that.
You agree with that, yes.
And, but have you investigated how long this surface will last? Because I know one of the northern clubs you mentioned are onto their third lot of digging up and putting in new artificial, because in the 6 years, the other two have been duds. So
That's true. Yes. Playford have had a very unfortunate situation. Their initial club greens were provided by the council, and along with the whole development, which was a wonderful investment by their council. Within weeks of having put them down, the installers or the manufacturers of that product agreed that they'd made they had mistakes in manufacturing, and agreed that at the end of the season they would replace them. They replaced them 12 months later, and unfortunately on replacement they were just as bad as they were the first time. They're now on the third greens, this time funded completely by the club, not by the council. The difference this time is they've gone to a completely different surface. They've gone to this KCL XL, which is the type that we're proposing to use. The only difference is that they've put blue-coloured surfaces instead of green, which is supposed to be advantageous for people of poor eyesight. And we had some people who were keen for us to do that, but interestingly, relating to the question before from Councillor Davey, the view of most of us was that we would rather have green because that's consistent with the parkland setting.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Piggott.
A couple, if I may. One is just coming back to Councillor Davies about the various options you considered. I don't think the reason why you're not replacing them with lawn. What's the main reason that you're not going to replace them with lawn?
Fundamentally, it's cost.
Yep.
Grass green, in really rough terms, grass greens will cost us, if we replace 2 new grass greens to replace the existing 2 artificial greens, it would cost us, we'd anticipate something of the order of, let's say, $70,000–$75,000 a year to maintain it. They're cheaper if we were to start from exactly where we were, to replace them with grass would be cheaper than replacing with the artificial. But that's approximately $70,000 per year compares with about $3,000 maintenance for the artificial.
Which is sort
That's
of
the
ground
compelling
staff.
reason why a lot of bowling clubs are going for artificial grass, even though they would rather be playing on grass.
Yep. Okay. My second question, well, actually, firstly, I'd just like to say I don't concur with perhaps some of the views that have been thrown at you today in regard to your club. So, and I've been impressed with how measured you've responded to the questions the way they were asked. But my question is, I just wanted to clarify. My understanding is that the club, with some help from a Marriotttville Trust, are going to pay for these greens entirely out of your own funds, or you're requesting from us is a loan to allow you to do it now, as opposed to have to wait some time before you actually collected it. Is that fair to say? That's
exactly the situation. From our point of view, there is a sense of urgency about it because, as Councillor Turnbull said, our greens at the moment are poor. It's not very nice to play on our greens and hear our opponents say things like, next time we're scheduled to play here, I'm not going to be available. That's a real indictment on the quality of the greens. Yes, we get a slight home ground advantage because we're used to it, but we'd rather be playing on high quality greens. That's our clear priority. So I've lost my track a little bit. But
I was just clarifying that you are paying for them yourself. All you're asking for us is to improve the timing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's right. Yeah, so that's where there's a sense of urgency. We know that we've lost members to other clubs because they got sick of playing on our greens. We know that there are 3 or 4 members of our existing players, and very concerningly, good, very promising young players who have told us they will leave the club unless the greens are improved. In that context, you'll see why I think of it as an urgent situation, and we can't afford to wait 4 years or 5 years until we've got the funds ourselves, because by then we may already be folding.
Understand. Thank you.
Got a few pop up. Councillor Henschke.
Good evening. Thank you. I've never played bowls, but one day I will.
You must
I
come
must.
out and play.
I can't wait. Thank you. Look, just something on my mind, and look, probably you could help me resolve this. Council, probably about 2 years ago, endorsed a policy to say no one's they've banned artificial turf on verges.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, so that's in our current verge policy. We've banned artificial turf. So what's on my mind, Mr. Watson, is that if we provide a loan to the club for artificial turf, will that be an issue for people that want to put artificial turf on their verges? You know, I'm just seeing I suppose it's quite different, isn't it? You know, is a verge or a bowling green? We can work that out.
Mr. Watson, I would say, Councillor Henschke, that they're quite different.
They're quite different.
And probably not fair of the questioner to correlate the two.
But I just thought I'd raise that as a little risk, you know, for perception, but just to flag that early on in the evening before we get to the debate. I understand they're quite different, and it's a sporting field.
It is.
It's quite different to verge.
Another point here is that our decision was made a few years ago to move. And yes, the political climate then was different, and the decision may have been different then. Yeah. Now all we're wanting to do is to replace an existing green with what we think will be better.
Yes, and get on with playing. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Davey, another question?
Thank you. Again, I'm back on the environmental track, because this isn't just a financial matter, it's a significant environmental impost, I think, on our community. I just wonder how you have, are you aware of how you'll get rid of the old lawn, the old artificial turf lawn? Have you found someone who can recycle it? Because otherwise it just goes straight into landfill.
It was a really significant concern for us, A, because this stuff that would have had to go to landfill, and B, because we would have to bear the cost of getting it to landfill. We've advertised quite recently and had responses from one individual who was after something of that sort, but only in small quantities, but 3 sporting clubs, and I won't remember what they are now. One is down at Penola, I think. One is the Lacrosse Association, and a third one is somewhere else, I can't remember. So there's significant interest in people wanting to take it off. So we were relieved to find that it can be used by groups that want that sort of quantity of that material. So that's a relief for us.
Members, I've got Councillor Lemon and then I've got Councillor Jones. I'm conscious of the time. We do have a lot on the agenda, so I'd be loath to take questions after these two unless they're extremely pressing. But Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Watson. It's been very interesting. Can you, and I'm really curious, when you get this new artificial grass, do you have an estimation of how long it will last? What's your plan with that? Is it likely to be 10, 15?
Well, let's go back. At the time that we put in the existing greens, our expectation was, or our planning was, that we needed to be putting funds away so that we would be ready to replace it after 10 years, thinking that that would be the worst case scenario.
Yep.
We genuinely hoped it would be 15 years and maybe 20. I mentioned before the Tranmere Club, they have a surface which is essentially a much earlier version of the same thing, and that's been in now for, I think, 15 years or so, and it's going strong. They have no indication that they'll be needing to replace it. So our expectation would be 15 plus, and certainly we would be planning from a financial point of view, we'd be planning to make sure that funds are set aside ready for replacement then.
Thank you.
But that's just the surface. One would trust that we're not dealing about the material underneath.
And Councillor Jones, final question.
Ken, thank you for coming. I'm just a bit surprised about the upkeep of the lawn bowls, because haven't you got 12 lawn tennis courts?
Yes.
Are they equally costly to upkeep? Because frankly, if you came here and said, can we have some money to put lawn bowls, I reckon you'd got more chance of getting money for us to do that.
The tennis costs a lot of money as well. Bowls does cost a little bit more because of the nature of the work that needs to be done. But we're irrigating 15 lawn tennis courts, and there's the Glenelg Turf Ace have got a contract to as greenkeepers to look after that, and they're working there every day of the year. Well, not during the winter time, but it's an expensive business that we need to be aware of in our club funding.
Great, thank you, Ken. Thank you very much for your deputation. My intention would be to move that item 11.6 further up into the agenda so that it would be more expedient for you if you'd like to stick around.
Okay, so I'll
Thank
just
you.
wait out there.
Yeah, just wait down in the gallery. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for the opportunity to talk with you tonight.
Yep. The next deputation is the membership support for the redevelopment of the Dulwich community. This isn't on your agendas, as it probably came in after Thursday, but we have Mrs. Libby Beath of Rose Park regarding the Dulwich Community Centre. Oh, a presentation as well. Libby, you'll have 5 minutes. You'll hear a bell at 4 minutes, and then, as you've seen with the previous deputy, there'll be an opportunity for questions from the members.
Okay.
So begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. My name is Libby Beath. I'm the Secretary of the East Residents Association, and I live in Grant Avenue at Rose Park. And I'd just like to start by acknowledging the Kaurna people, custodians of the land on which I meet with you tonight, and I pay my respects to past, present and emerging elders. Thank you for giving me this time. Sorry. The East Residents Association, just for your information, was formed in May 2021 and was constituted in October 2021. ERA's purpose is to advocate on behalf of residents of Dulwich, Rose Park and Toorak Gardens. Currently, we have a membership of 55, representing 77 individuals. So there are families and couples in there in some of those memberships. Recently, the membership participated in a survey, and 87.5% of the membership responded to the survey. There were 4 topics we covered in that survey: planning and development, the proposed 40-kilometre-hour zone through the area, a proposed community garden, and the upgrade of the Dulwich Community Centre. And that's what I'd like to, that's the basis of my thing today. Just by the way, we've also done a survey just recently on the 40-kilometre-hour trial, and we got over 220 replies. Now, that wasn't just of our membership, that was of all the people in those 3 suburbs. So the ERA does have some reach. If I focus on the questions regarding the Dulwich Community Centre, there were 3 questions. Have you used the centre? Was it fit for purpose? And is the centre upgrade a good idea? The first question, you'll see there that have you ever used the community centre? 50% said they had, 48% said no, they hadn't, and 2% said they didn't know. When we talk about fit for purpose, and this graph, sorry, my apologies, but this graph is incorrect. I have to blame my husband for that. He's the scientist, he's the social scientist that did all this work, and he got it a bit mixed up, but that's okay. This actually talks about the people that have used the centre, not the other 48% that haven't used it. So of them, 80%, not the 53%, 80% said yes, it's fit for purpose. 10% said no, it's not, and 10% said I don't know. And the last question we asked them, which probably is the most relevant one for you here tonight, is whether they thought the upgrade of the community centre was a good idea. An overwhelming 83% supported the upgrade of the community centre, 12% said they don't know, and 5% said no, it wasn't. So that's not the only bit of research that I've done. That's what was in the survey. I've also spent some time trying to talk to residents in Union Street because I think they're the most impacted by the upgrade. One of them was a member, one was someone who contacted me directly, and one is the daughter of a committee member. And I've spoken to two directly and one indirectly, and all three gave me exactly the same feedback. All said that they support the upgrade of the centre. However, they don't want an increase into the parking issues. In fact, they'd like to see parking in the street decrease. They don't want it used for late night events, and they don't want the cleaner in there late at night. I think so that really brings me to the end of my presentation, but I think as you'll see there is overwhelming support for the people for the upgrade of Dulwich Community Centre from East Residents Association. Thank you.
Councillor Henschke.
Good evening, Libby, and thank you very much for coming this evening and all the work of the Residents Association volunteering to do the social research. My question is, what other feedback have you received from Union Street? Well, we mentioned the residents already, but locals and other interested parties?
I have talked to other people and talked to
Yes.
people on council, etc. And some of the feedback I got was that whilst they support a community centre in the area around Dulwich, in our area, so they're not against the community centre, what they would like to see it in is in a different location because it's in a residential street. And the suggestion was that it would be moved to a church hall in the corner of Everett and Stewart Road. And I thought, well, look, you know, in a perfect world that'd be fantastic, but there are practical things like is the centre, is that hall up for sale? Can we afford it? Is it up for sale? So I took the initiative to talk to the Catholic Church who own the church hall, and their words to me were very similar to this. I am paraphrasing them, but under no circumstances will that hall be up for sale. Under no circumstances. And they don't want the Burnside City Council or anybody from the East Residents Association talking about the possibility of using that hall. It is not up for sale. So that was pretty clear. So that was, yeah. Thank you.
Can I just clarify something with your response? Who was it that said that?
The Catholic Church. There was a person
Do you have their name?
called Conrad. There was another person who I can send you the email. I talked to a person on email, and then I spoke to a gentleman by the name of Conrad.
Okay. Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in, Mrs. B. In terms of your presentation, if you can you go back to the first pie chart, please?
First pie chart, yep.
That was it? You went past that one? When those 48, the 50% that said yes, do you know how many people that was?
So there was, at the time of our membership, there were 49 people in our membership. And so that would be about, I think my husband said, I went through because he was the person doing the data, he said there's something like 25 people that responded.
So that represents 25 people. Yeah, okay. So if we go to the next slide, again, just over maybe 26 people.
Yep.
And if we go to the next slide, then that would be maybe...
I think it's 42 people.
42 people? Yeah, okay, thank you.
42 people of 49.
Thank you.
So
I was just, that looks like sort of 83% of people. It was 42 people. Would have been useful to have that on the bottom, but Yeah.
But the issue here is it is representative of the people that are
Of
in
your
the area.
group, yes. Thank you.
And by way of the research, it should be representative of the people living in that area as well.
That aren't part of your group. Well, that's
No,
an
but-
extrapolation that
Yeah.
we can't really make.
No, we can't make it, but the issue, when you do research, you can't get everybody. And as Burnside City Council knows, when they do their research, I think the master plan, you don't get a lot of people responding. I got an overwhelming response from our membership. Yes, it is, it is growing, but we've got an overwhelming response.
Councillor Piggott. Oh, sorry. No, sorry. I take that back. Councillor Dawes.
Yes. Libby, I didn't quite catch it. How many people responded in total to your survey?
49.
49. Thank you. That's all I need to ask. Thank you.
Now, Councillor Piggott.
Thank you. A couple of questions. You said that you picked up the view that Dulwich will want a community centre, but it's not necessarily in the right place.
I didn't say that. That's what other people said to me.
That was just one person that said that to you?
Two.
Two people? Yes. Well done on talking to the Catholic Church. It was the answer's unfortunate, I feel, but it was a good source. Is there any indication of how much they use it? I mean, there's...
Look, you'd have to ask them.
Because I guess selling it's not necessarily...
They did say to me that it is a very valuable part of their diocese, so they don't want to see it go.
Yeah, no.
That was basically what he said to me.
Yep, understand. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thank you for coming along tonight,
No
Libby.
worries.
My question relates to parking and how the dynamics of the parking in the area would work, because the reports and some of the feedback is, and we all know it's located in such a tiny, narrow little street, and it's the big question is how will we have viable centre if people can't park nearby. So how do you see that resolving itself and working out?
I'm not a traffic expert or an expert. I haven't
No, but
delved
as a
into
local,
it, but as just somebody that's listening to what other people are saying and etc. There will be my understanding of the new design of the upgrade. There will be 4 parks provided, which takes 4 cars off the street. There are the notions of, most people that use it are kids and the elderly, who had Fit for Life in there. And I am generalising. I'm sure there's lots in between that use it, but, they're the sort of 2 that I saw that use the centre. And usually with children, they're dropped off and picked up. And that's where the issue is. It's not so much that people are staying there the whole time, that I understand, is that people are parking, dropping off their kids, picking them up. And one of the daughter of a committee member, she said that they park across the driveway and she can't get out. And so that's a real issue for her. But I'm sure the council could think of imaginative ways to lessen the burden, like staggering, not having overlapping times to have it booked out, etc., so that there's not, somebody coming and going at the same time. So I finish at 9 o'clock and then someone starts at 9 o'clock. Always having. So there's imaginative ways we could actually manage the parking situation.
Thank you.
Great. I don't have anybody else on my list, so
Okay.
thank you very much,
Thank you.
Miss Beath, for speaking. All right, so members, I understand there might be a motion without notice.
There was, in regards to the agenda,
Yeah.
are you talking about? Yes, I'm not sure when you would
think
like,
now would be a good
Mr.
time.
Chair. Okay. There has been a move and a suggestion's been made that items 11.2, McKenna Street Reserve matter, and 11.4, Hazelwood Park Reserve fencing, be deferred to the next council meeting on August the 9th. So the motion I'm moving is that agenda items 11.2, portions of McKenna Street Reserve and Yeronga Avenue Drainage Reserve future options, and 11.4, Hazelwood Park Reserve fencing, be deferred to the council meeting scheduled for the 9th of August to enable all ward councillors to participate in those debates. And, could you please add, and those wishing to make deputations be facilitated. Because so in speaking to this, Due to the COVID outbreak, my co-ward councillor isn't able to be present at the meeting tonight, Councillor Hughes, and there are also a couple of residents who've been away and who haven't been able to prepare deputations in time about the Hazelwood Park fencing issue. So hopefully someone will second this and you'll support this so that we defer it just for 2 weeks. So thank you.
I seek a seconder, Councillor Lemon,
Happy to second.
and you reserve your right. Is there any debate? Then I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? That motion's carried. So that means that items 11.2 and 11.4 we have held over to the next meeting. All right. We'll now go through the normal quick fire process. If you wish to pull an item, if you don't come up on my screen, then I'll put the item straight away. So I'm looking, would anyone like to pull 11.1? Councillor Davey. Sorry, can you clear your screens? Thank you. 11.3, Councillor Henschke. 11.5, Conningham Street Dog Park, Councillor Lemon. Lemon. 11.6, financial assistance request from Kensington Guns, Councillor Piggott. Item 11.7, customer experience policies. I have no one wishing to pull that, so. Yep, thank you, Councillor Dawes moving.
I put mine live.
Oh, you're on? All right, Councillor Lemon's pulling. Sorry? The dog park's coming up. Number 11.8. Sorry, are you pulling the 11.7, Councillor Lemon?
No, I was going to move it.
Oh, you're going to move it. All right, sorry. Second to Councillor Dawes. Right, all those in favour? Against? That's carried. Apologies. Can I just clear? Thank you. Item 11.8, Annual Bylaw Management and Enforcement Statistic Reports, Councillor Davey. Item 11.9, Nominations for Members of Greater Adelaide Region Organisation of Councils. Do we need to pull this? Yeah, can someone pull it? We need to nominate someone. Councillor Lemon, thank you. Or not nominate someone. Item 11.10, Mayor's Activity Report. I suppose that's not for debate. Councillor Piggott. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Jones. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. And 11.11, Councillor Davey pulling it. Okay, my proposal, members, is that we go to the Kinsey Guns, which is 11.6, then we go to 11.3 and then proceed.
Sorry, there's a lot of people for Conningham Dog Park.
Yeah, okay.
And Libby's left, I think.
Oh, Libby's left. All right, well then we might as well just go in order, now that we don't have 11.2 and 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we can do this one first, because he's reading, and then there's a lot of people waiting for this, so 11.5, 11.6.
Sure. All right, well, I'll move 11.1. Yeah. Councillor Davey, 11.1, Minutes of CEO Recruitment Performance Appraisal Remuneration Review Committee.
Oh, thank you. I'm happy to move in accordance with the recommendation. I just had some queries about the feedback that elected members provided to the committee and that we didn't get any response back in the process. My main concern is that there are on page to the agreed key performance indicators on page 30, there are no hard, to my mind, no hard enough targets for environmental issues. I appreciate the targeted initiatives to promote tree planting on private land, but I would have liked to see some harder targets in terms of developing initiatives to increase tree canopy cover across the city of Burnside. And I'd also like to see harder targets for improving our rates of, or reducing our rates of rubbish to landfill targets and increasing our green organics recycling. So I think I understand all of the complexities of working on these and working them out and determining them. I acknowledge MacArthur's role, and they did a great job in the whole assessment process. I'd just like to see us having harder targets to help achieve our climate mitigation process and targets. Thanks.
Can I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Pickett.
Yes, I'm happy to second that. Second the motion. I guess I'd just like to pick up on Councillor Davies' views. I don't know what feedback was given back. I do know that the meeting of the committee did include feedback from elected members in where we eventually did land. And they are of the nature they're never going to please everybody particularly. And I do so, I think, by the nature of some of the feedback that we did work with, I'm positive some of it was from you. It was unmistakably from you. So the process was to get feedback from council members. It was looked at and discussed. Some of it did actually make changes. I think some of Councillor Davies made changes actually. And that's where we landed. It's a matter of degrees, I think, in terms of how hard it is, where you push that to. So I think it's what Councillor Davies is conveying is probably the fact that we are 13 members with different views and different priorities. I do think overall though, and there were quite a lot of changes from the first run to the eventual KPIs, and I did feel that meeting was extremely productive in actually getting quite broad KPIs and getting quite absolute requirements as opposed to sort of less absolute requirements of the CEO. So look, I think it's right to put the motion through. Councillor Davies is not arguing that, and I do think they do work, and I do understand that various people around would have liked to see other things in there in different ways.
Thank you, Councillor Pickett. Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Acting Presiding Member. Nina Marnie all, greet you all this evening. Look, I also present at that committee meeting, and it was a very robust discussion where we very seriously took elected member feedback into play, and we really shot things around, and what we spat out at the end of that meeting was very different to what we started with. So I can assure the chamber present and those in absentia that the feedback that you're asked for and that you give that CEO committee is very, very seriously looked at. And look, echoing Councillor Pickett, we did look for firm targets to hold the CEO to, and specifically looking at environment, we've got actions that will reduce carbon emissions by 100 tonnes per year. This is what we are trying to do. It's a firm hit this mark as opposed to develop this or activate this, that sort of thing. So, which in terms of giving our CEO guidance and priorities, I think the environmental, and look, I've certainly, you all know me and my priorities, that I certainly had my environmental hat on in that meeting, and I really really also look back to the environmental report card reports that we get on a regular basis are very strong, and our roadmap that we have in place is sound, and we are hitting those sorts of targets. So we have faith in the CEO that environment is a priority for the organisation, and the indicators that we put in were designed to be specifically measurable, to give him a chance to really hit a particular mark, as opposed to just general try and do this sort of thing. So just some context there.
Thank you, Councillor Hubel. Councillor Dawes?
Yeah, just to add to what both Councillor Pickett and Councillor Hubel said, I think what we were keen to do, wherever possible, was to have the KPIs measurable. And in a number of situations, you'll see there's a number there. We were so keen on that. But it wasn't just Councillor Davey. You know, there were other councillors that also made comments. We should mention that everybody, I think Councillor Hensky made some, and also Councillor Jones. So I think from where we started to where we finished, there was a tremendous change, because we actually really wanted to have everybody's input. So I think what we did get in the end is close to, I forget what Councillor Pickett called it, but it was probably a consensus really in the end as to what we think could work.
Thank you. There's no one else on my list, so I'll return to Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'll just summarise very briefly. Thank you for that clarification. And don't get me wrong, I think the CEO is doing a fantastic job, and I think, you know, hopefully we'll be rewarded for that. But yes, it's been an interesting process, and I take on board what you're saying in terms of the numbers and the hard targets. So hopefully this will be agreed to, and we'll move on. Thank you.
I put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. All right, sorry, just to clarify what I was trying to get at before, my proposal is to move to 11.5, which is the Conningham Dog Park, then 11.6, which is the bowling loan, and then 11.3, which is Dulwich Community Centre. And the reason for that is to facilitate the gallery. Is there anyone absurdly angry at that proposal? If not, I'll move to 11.5. And Councillor Lemon, you have the call in relation to Conningham Street Dog Park.
Caught me on the hop.
Keep you on your toes, Councillor Lemon.
Well, yes, my very cold toes. Okay. I pulled this because I wanted to thank the administration for the work they've done on the dog park. As we all know, this is a piece of land that doesn't belong to council, but we have managed to get it over a long-term lease, which means that the money that we've spent in that now is over a longer term. What we've done recently is a survey, because a lot of people who have responded to, we've done a few things in that dog park in terms of my community budget, and we've made improvements in that dog park as a result of people that are involved with the dog park making submissions and budgetary bids, which is fantastic as well. What we recently did was conduct a survey about the future of the dog park, where we had a big, and I haven't got it on because I got caught in the hop, I don't know how many people respond, but there was some hundreds, and 70% of them wanted it split, because it's both big dogs and small dogs that go to that park. So this report looks at the new way that that park is going to run, and I think that what we've done in this report, what administration's done in this report, has actually translated what the community has asked for, and we will go ahead with this, and the community will get the sorts of things that they've wanted, which is a park just for small dogs, a bigger park of the split park for bigger dogs to run around, shelters and water on both sides, and a bit more in the way of infrastructure and some landscaping. So I'm happy to support this, and I hope you do too.
Just to clarify, that was moved by Councillor Lemon. Yep, and I'm seeking a seconder for that motion. Someone? Anyone? Not fussy. Councillor Hubel, thank you. And you reserve?
I reserve my right.
Great. Is there any debate on that item? Therefore, I'll put it back to the Councillor Piggott.
Okay, so no one's willing to second it, but then there's
No, we've
no
got-
debate on it. How unusual. How unusual. Well, I largely concur with Councillor Lemon's points in regard to the dog park. I think it is a successful exercise by administration. They should be congratulated because for as long as I can remember, it has been a piece of land that we didn't control, so therefore we couldn't do much with any sort of certainty, and that has been resolved. And then the plan put before us tonight has been looks pretty good. I don't have a dog. I don't use the park, but it does actually look very sensible. The whole small all dogs seems very sensible. The only concern I have, I suppose, is that the report tells us that what would have cost us $120,000 in 2021 is potentially going to cost us $286,000 if we forge on right now. And my view is that perhaps we shouldn't. I certainly feel we should endorse the concept and we should do the work. I do feel, though, that we should put it into next year's budget considerations as opposed to push the button on it this financial year. It may not cause a significant delay, may not help in changing the amount of money it costs us, but I just think if this was me and my own money and something that I was going to cost me $120,000 a year ago is now suddenly $286 because of the world we currently live in, I'd probably be just saying, look, I might just cool my heels for a year and see where we're up to. So that's my view on it, which is why I won't be in favour of it. In terms of getting it sorted out, I am in favour of that, but it's just such a stark change in what we thought it would cost us and what we put in the budget and what it's going to cost us.
Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Councillor Davey?
I have a couple of questions. I couldn't work out in the concept plan at attachment B on page 215, there's no street markings, and I couldn't work out which was the alignment of the park. Because there's no north. Yeah.
North is the top of the map.
So, dog park for small dogs, the entrance to that would be, can I have someone who knows?
The current gate on Conningham.
Right. So the southernmost one, Conningham.
So the two gates would be number 17, number 18.
I can't even read it. I can't read it. That's the trouble, it's so small. Oh, thank you. 17. Oh, so that's Conningham Street there. Right. So I'm just thinking of, thank you, Grant.
So I'm going to go with that's your first question, Councillor Davey.
Sorry?
That's your first question. So you get a supplementary if you'd like.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Turnbull?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question too, please. I'm wondering if administration could help me. Could the Burnside Council lease extra land from the state government? Because there's a large car park there, near the Purser building, and quite a bit on the verge as well, because that's a very small park for big dogs to run around in, especially if it's divided up.
Administration, yeah.
Through the chair, I might refer the question over to Ms. Kennedy.
Sorry, give me one sec.
Apologies, sorry. I'm just trying to find the relevant piece in the report. Through the chair, the section 29 of the report talks around benchmarking of other dog parks in other council areas, and I think the conclusion we can draw there is that ours is not dissimilar to a number of other dog parks in terms of size, and certainly not dissimilar to a number of other dog parks in terms of those with split sizes and the amount of space that's provided for both small and large dogs. My understanding is that the area that we have currently is Crown land, but it's vested in City of Burnside for use as a dog park, and we have access to the parking area behind that for those that use the dog park as well. So there's probably not a huge amount of room to extend that at this point in time.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Chamble?
It does. I'll just speak to say that I think that it is too small an area, and there is that great big car park. If perhaps we could take that on notice, that Burnside Council does negotiate for more land. Otherwise, we're going to see an influx of big dogs in other parks, because the owners will say there's not enough room for our Freddie to run around in that bit. So if the council could take that on notice, please, if they could negotiate. Thank you.
The administration will take that on notice. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Chamble. Next question to Councillor Henschke.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to speak to the motion, get on with it, and I support the officer's recommendation, and I think it's a very good idea to have the areas split off for small dogs and big dogs. We need to help the community safely enjoy their time with their animals. I personally had a very bad experience in a dog park where a very big dog attacked another small dog in front of us, and it wasn't a pleasant sight. It became so awful that the owners of the dogs then also had a conflict. Police got involved. So for a small thing like dogs going to a dog park ended up in a very, very bad situation. I wouldn't like to see that risk ever happening in the City of Burnside, so I think we have to do everything we can, because we do know that big dogs attack little dogs. So thank the administration for all the work they've done, and I agree we do need to do this now to mitigate this risk. Thank you.
I have no other speakers. Councillor Hubel, are you happy for me to... Oh, I have Councillor Davey pop up.
Sorry, I haven't spoken yet. I note it's a huge issue, especially hearing what Councillor Henschke had to say, of exercising our dogs. We've got increasing number of dogs. We love them. We've got to exercise them, and people want to exercise them with themselves. Many are happy to use our parks, and that works well. Some people really value dog parks, but I'm very, very concerned that the size of this is, the size of the area is too small to actually split it into meaningful usage areas for small and large dogs. I think it's probably the large dogs that will miss out, but I stand to be corrected on that. I agree, and I note the comments that most of the feedback was for more trees, and it's certainly, the couple of times I ever took my dogs there, it's certainly a hot open space. It needs a lot more trees, a lot more better grassed areas, so it's not muddy in winter, and a lot more shrubbery around it. It could be quite a beautiful area. The other thing I read and was concerned about is the hours of operations of the park, and that it will be lit up like a Christmas tree at night with lots of noise there. I would prefer to see it, and I think it really does need to be daylight hours operation only. I don't think we should be facilitating it for nighttime use at all, and I'm not sure if that's the intent, but I'd like to not see that. And I just have one question. What's the if this motion is successful, what is the consultation process proposed and for how long would that be? Please.
Through the chair, paragraph 40 of the report suggests that the community consultation will start from the 27th of July till 16th of August.
Councillor Hubel.
Thank you, Acting Presiding Member. Look, this is a really good-looking design. Look, and I do enjoy taking young Dolly to that park myself. And speaking on the night time, look, I would actually disagree with Councillor Davey respectfully. I think there is a place for nighttime dog park use. I think there are people that work, particularly in the winter months with daylight saving, people that work during the day, and evening is when they can walk their dogs during the week. And I think that having that facility open after dark hours, obviously a common sense approach is necessary here, but I'd certainly be very supportive of nighttime use in a limited, controlled way. Look, the split is great. It's a classic thing. I mean, I think there's a reason why I think a lot of small dog owners probably avoid these parks, and it is the robustness of the larger dogs, by no fault of the larger dogs. These are different breeds with different energy levels. Saying that, my small dog Dolly is probably not going to be satisfied, or, to be truthful, welcome, because the Border Collie in her kind of takes over. As Councillor Davey will attest, our dogs have had a play in Hazelwood Park together. We'll probably prefer time in the big park. And even in the report, it talks about there being discretion for elderly, large dogs that are elderly or frail could very appropriately be in the small dog section. And look, that is the beautiful thing about these parks. The users contribute items. I've seen people bringing in chairs, extra seating to donate to the area, as well as toys and things. So I think the communities around these parks, it brings people together. Having dogs brings people together in the community, and anything we as a city can do to strengthen that and facilitate people gathering and making that easier for people to do is something we should do. I do acknowledge the cost blowout that Councillor Piggott raised. It's regrettable, but look, this is a project over 2 financial years, goes into 23-24 as well, so I guess there's a bit of an offset there, but certainly it's not ideal, but I think that this is a very, very important project, and I would be loath for a cost blowout, which we're seeing across all sorts of construction. I'd be loath to see that kind of being the death knell of this proceeding in a timely manner. So I certainly hope that this keeps moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Huber. Councillor Jones.
I think Councillor Piggott has a valid point. This is not just a cost blowout. This is more than a doubling of the cost, which is pretty awful. So I think I'd be in favour of pushing it out, and then we can address these other issues that have been raised. It's 1.5 acres at the moment. The proposal is to split the large dog part to just under an acre. I don't have a dog, so I don't know whether that's big enough, but I think it's worth researching whether there is an alternative venue that we could have a small dog park. I'm also, frankly, aghast that we're spending $250,000 because irresponsible dog owners won't control their dogs. And maybe it'd be cheaper to have a ranger there 24 hours a day, with a zapper for bad dogs. For $70,000 a year, we might be making a profit. So at this juncture, I'm not going to support this motion.
I don't have anyone else on my list, so I'll return to the mover, which is Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Yes, there has been a cost blowout, but I'm the local ward councillor and I know that people have been talking about separating this park for a long time. It's only now that we ourselves have got around to actually doing that. And I think it's important, when you look at the report, you actually see that people with small dogs don't go there anymore because they're terrified that their small dogs are going to get attacked by big dogs. Now, I don't know that there's that many big dogs that go to that park, but I know that a lot of small dogs with older owners no longer go to that park. They actually put their dogs in their cars and go elsewhere where their little dogs are going to be safer. So to the question of, you know, an acre isn't enough for big dogs, let's not forget, virtually across the road from that dog park, you've got Margaret Webb Oval and then you've got Glenunga Oval, both of which are huge and both of which are off-lead areas. So if a big dog needs a big run, it can do it on either of those. It might get muddy feet around the goalposts these days, but it can do it on either of those ovals. Whereas the little dogs are safe in a spot which is a minuscule part of this park. So I hope you do support this. Park's been taken up by people in recent times, and I'm not a dog owner. The park's been taken up by people who really enjoy it. And I'm really sad to hear that small dog owners feel that they can no longer take their dog to their local park because large dogs are menacing. This is a way of actually helping that. The other issues that were talked about, we can in fact investigate over time, but I think it's timely to do this now. I think they've been waiting for a long time, they've been talking about it for a long time, and with summer coming up, I actually think, and again, I'll address the issue of we shouldn't have it at night. There are virtually no neighbours there. This is Conningham Street. Across the road there's a kindergarten that's closed. Across the road there's another park. Next to it there's office buildings that are empty at night. So it doesn't hurt anyone if that park was used 24 hours a day. There are no neighbours. So, you know, it's not a problem in a real sense. There's no light spillage to anyone that would care. So I hope you do support this, and I hope you support this for now.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. That concludes the debate. So all those in favour? All those against? That's a tied vote, which means I get a casting vote. In my view, what I don't particularly like about the motion is the fact that it automatically binds the next council after the community consultation goes through. I think I would have preferred to have seen the motion come back to council with a community consultation. However, in my view, I think that this is something that is incredibly popular in the area. I've heard ward councillors speak about it a number of times, and I know that, in my view, it would facilitate a better relationship between the small and big dogs. I understand the cost pressures, of course, Councillor Piggott, but it is something that we have looked at previously, and I think we should consider pushing forward. So I'll vote in favour of the motion, which means that the motion is carried. We'll then move on to item 11.6, which is financial assistance request from Kensington Gardens Bowling and Tennis Club. And Councillor Piggott, you have the call.
Thank you. I'd like to propose the officer's recommendation, which effectively approves a loan of $120,000 for the Kensington Gardens Bowling and Tennis Club to replace their dud synthetic greens, to quote Councillor Turnbull earlier. We don't get many of these. This is a club that's spending its own money. It just needs some of ours in the meantime because they don't have it yet. They are not asking for a grant, they are asking for a loan. They have done it previously as well. Didn't work out as well as they'd like, but they have done it and they've repaid it. So their credentials, I think, are strong. They need it clearly by listening to the deputation to sort out what is a problem for the club and could ultimately bring the club down if they don't do it. The question about whether it should be synthetic or not seems to have actually been in their minds at the start of this process as well. And I feel they are in the best position to know what is the best for them. synthetic surfaces are not unprecedented around Burnside, and even within Kensington Gardens Reserve. So from that point of view, they do seem to have done the work, or not seem to, they have done the work in terms of the issues. They've found the money, except for the $120,000 they would like to borrow from us. So I feel this is a good proposal. I felt the club has got good credentials, history of paying its money back, and is actually in a reasonably financial position anyway. And so I commend this motion to you.
Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Councillor Hubel, you'd like to second?
I'll reserve my right.
Thank you. Then Councillor Turnbull, you're up next.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually in two minds about the recommendation. The notion of such a large expanse of artificial grass goes against the City of Burnside policy of a greener environment and against the principles of Green Adelaide. I note that this material uses huge volumes of plastic that can't be recycled and therefore has a very big carbon footprint. It slowly breaks down, creating long-term microplastic pollution that ends up in the waterways. It contributes to urban heating. We have our dedicated environment team in the City of Burnside Council, and they work hard to reduce carbon footprint, maintain our green spaces and promote care for our environment. They'll be wondering why we would loan money for this project, so that the club can cover the ground again with an impermeable, toxic substance, having ripped up the last one after only 6 years. At least we know now that it's not going to be chucked into landfill. However, the Kensington Bowling Club has decided that the benefits of artificial turf and the costs associated outweigh the environment. Now, a second bit is because the clubs asked for a loan rather than a handout, as so many do, and have $140,000 available funds from fundraising, I have an altered perspective as well. Their track record is good for repaying loans, and they are prepared to use the Marriottville Trust money. So I honestly don't see why they can't use all the money from the trust fund, because they have $2 million in it. It's a fair bit. And yes, the bowling surface is awful, so I probably will actually support this one. Thank you.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Acting worship. I also will support this. I think it's excellent that they've come to us only for a loan, and we do have access to loans through our local government funds, and they've got a good track record of paying it back. Much has been made of the environmental damage that a large piece of plastic like this will make. And I'd like to actually put an alternative view here. Firstly, it's already there. They've already got a large piece of plastic, which is now going to be recycled and readapted somewhere else. So I don't have an issue with that. And they're going to replace it with a better piece of plastic which might last 15 to 20 years. So I don't have an issue with that either. But if you stop to think about the maintenance on that, and our deputy told us it was $75,000 a year, a lot of that is actually water use. So let's not forget that having an artificial playing surface, which is not dissimilar to any other artificial playing surface that you might have, whether it be a tennis court or 10-pin bowls, or, come on, give me some more sports that have got artificial. I don't know sports that well. There's lots. Hockey. Skateboarding, which has got, which is really not water permeable. You know, a bowling green that is of the latest generation of artificial turf doesn't worry me as much as any other of those surfaces. In fact, worries me less, because it's probably easier to take up and it's probably easier to dispose of or readapt in other places, including indoors. And if you're going to have grass, it doesn't use fertilisers, waters, all the other stuff that you're putting into the water table. So I think we're making a bit too much of the environmental detriment. Sure, we're not going to have these things on our verges, but this isn't our verge. This is a playing field and a playing surface, and we're not paying for it We're just giving people a loan. So I'm very happy to support this. Good on them for coming and asking us. Good on them for making the decision that this wasn't good enough and it needs to be replaced. Good on them for doing all the legwork so that they can continue playing and continue keeping the people that are actually part of the bowling club, the membership, and continue to actually not be embarrassed when they have people coming from other places, including councillors from this council. So I'm very happy to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. Councillor Jones.
I am going to support this. Look, I don't quite understand the economics of how you can maintain 15 lawn tennis courts, but it's too expensive to maintain 2 bowling greens on top of that. That said, they are paying for it themselves, so it's their funeral. I'm happy with that. And you'd have to say, the council itself has just paid for 8 brand new hardcourt tennis courts in Kensington Gardens Reserve. So we're looking a bit hypocritical if we say, well, it's one rule for us and another one for you. And those hard tennis courts were replacing existing hard tennis courts, so there's no net loss to the environment. So I have to say, yes.
Can you say that again?
Yes, I've spoken twice. How good is that?
You're not.
What kind of presiding member are you?
It's fine. It's not a mandate to wear your mask, but I do obviously encourage you to wear your masks at this particular time. Thank you, Councillor Jones, again for a spirited discussion. Councillor Dawes.
Thank you for controlling the meeting, Chair. I think this has come to us because the club chose badly, basically. They chose the wrong surface. And wasn't this only club, there were other clubs too. Now, the reason why it costs so much more for a bowling green compared to a tennis court, there's lots of rolling, there's lots of cutting because you need to have a very even surface. The other thing I wanted to say to you is there are 9 clubs only that have natural grass left in the metropolitan area. So to have grass courts at Kensington Gardens is fantastic. I also wanted what Councillor Lemon said was correct. There are a lot of private tennis courts that we approve in developments. The majority of those are synthetic grass. If we had a hockey club here, that would be synthetic grass. We do have a Burnside hockey club, but no actual synthetic surface. So look, what I like about this club is that they have done it before. They paid it back. They admitted that they didn't get it quite right. They're coming back with a surface that should be 15 years lasting instead of 6 years. It's very unusual, as they say. So I have confidence in the club doing it this way. Yeah, great to come back to natural grass, but I'm telling you that bowling clubs around the Adelaide metropolitan area now, very few of them have got natural grass because of the cost. As simple as that.
Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Presiding Officer. I'm in a bit of a dilemma tonight about this as well, and I endorse all of the points that Councillor Turnbull has made. As I raised before, I'm very concerned about the environmental issues associated with this. And I understand all the arguments that have been put forward for us to facilitate these funds for the club. However, I also note Councillor Henschke's very prescient observation that we have banned the rest of our community from using artificial grass on all our nature strips because of its environmental degradation that it produces. I don't believe that we should support or facilitate such an environmentally damaging surface. The playing surface breaks down by its very nature into microplastics just from as soon as it's installed. And these are distributed all over the award-winning park, superb nature centre of nature that we've spent a huge investment on, our community land, as well as into all the neighbouring suburbs. Hard surface tennis courts are another matter entirely, because as far as I know, they don't progressively fragment and break down and pollute the air in the surrounding area. So the objection to artificial grass and its widening, I don't believe that people are accepting artificial grass surfaces as playing surfaces in our community areas. I think people are realising with the climate change and the climate mitigation that's going on that this is really bad for our environment. And so I'm having a great deal of trouble supporting this. I think as a council we should actually include a provision in our leases that bans any lessee in Burnside from using artificial grass on its surfaces. So I'm in the balance of not being able to support this tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Piggott, you had a question?
I do. Could I have could I get administration's comment in regard to the fragmenting of the surface, as to whether that is something that is it's been raised twice by Councillor Turnbull and Councillor Davey. Could administration provide any input onto that?
Through the chair, I might refer the question on to Ms Kennedy.
Through the chair, unfortunately we don't have any experts in synthetic bowling green breakdown into microplastics on staff, so I would have to take that question on notice, sorry.
Could I confirm it wasn't in the report and I missed it?
No, it was not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Councillor Hubel, I'll give you an opportunity to exercise your right if you wish.
Thank you, Worshipful Acting Member. I'm so confused as to
Struggling
doesn't
with
quite
this.
roll off
Acting
the tongue
chair's
there.
fine.
I'm sorry. And yes, please do excuse me if I remove my mask while I speak. So I'm picked up by the microphone effectively. Look, I'm really disappointed that the club is wanting to move forward with artificial turf. It's regrettable that their working party couldn't see a way through to converting back to grass. But then I'm not a member of the club and I'm not part of that steering committee. And I guess we're in a situation where we do need to put our faith in our tenants and our residents that they have done their due diligence, and I do trust that the club has done that. I do believe that they've taken environmental considerations into account. So my personal heavy preference against synthetics, I'm putting aside in looking at this and kind of trying to look at this proposal as it stands and on its merits. And this is a club that is not asking for a handout, it's asking for a leg up. And I think that, again, us as a city, things that we can do to help the community, help community clubs help themselves, I think we should be doing. I think that's very much within our remit and our scope as a local government. So I'm very, very pleased with the way the club has gone about this. Much like Councillor Turnbull, not happy with the plastics, but pleased with the way the club is going about things. And look, it is plastic replacing plastic, Councillor Lemon mentioned. I think that's a really important point to look at. I mean, we had concrete replacing concrete up the road with the hard courts. And look, there are a lot of things we could do as a council if we would really wanted to grab artificial turf by the neck and get rid of it. We have gotten rid of it on the verges, but there's a suggestion about incorporating it into our leases. Let's do those sorts of things. Let's give people that are in a position to do something about this fair chance to do so. And I think if we were to take a stand, and I think this would be a very high profile stand we took, I think if we were to turn this down, the discussion that we've got around environmental concerns, the story is going to be Burnside Council, rejects grant on environmental grounds. That's a high profile environmental story. So the story will be that I'm not going to say picking on the club, but we are using this club to make an example of this point, and I don't think that's right. I don't think it's fair to blindside the club like this. And I certainly think that if the club were to hear the comments made tonight, they would probably have prepared a deputation that probably addressed the environmental considerations a lot more heavily. So I hope, I wish I had a little bit more time. I've got a few more things to say, but I'll leave it at that. I hope this can go through.
Thank you, Councillor Hubel. Councillor Piggott, if you could sum up, please.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you for that discussion. That sort of covered all the issues. I think the bottom line is that we do have a club here that has done the work and sees it's quite important for its viability and for its maintaining what it does within the community, that it replaces the artificial surface with another artificial surface. They have done that work, and then they've come to us for a loan and not a grant. So I do feel that this is something that should be congratulated, and I think Councillor Hubel's discussion on whether we took a high-profile stand, what that does to the club is absolutely right. It makes it absolutely in the gun because we've taken that decision when in fact we haven't done that on some of our own developments. So I think that wouldn't be appropriate, and so I feel it is the right thing to lend this money to the club and set them on their way. So I seek your support.
Thank you, Councillor Piggott. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. I'll now move to item 11.3, which is Dulwich Community Centre consultation results. And I have Councillor Henschke, you have the call.
Thank you. Mayor. Acting Mayor.
Acting Mayor. Can we just call me, just chair?
Chair.
Just call me the chair.
Okay. So I move that Council notes the feedback received through the recent community consultation process in relation to the proposed plans for the redevelopment of the Dulwich Community Centre. 2, subject to all relevant approvals, approves the proposed designs for the Dulwich Community Centre with construction to occur in the 2022-23 financial year. And 3, undertakes a parking and traffic study of the area surrounding the Dulwich Community Centre following completion of the redevelopment project to identify and address any ongoing parking and traffic issues arising from the redevelopment. So this evening we heard a deputation from Ms Libby Beath, and she presented the results of a survey they did done by a social researcher called Dr. Ian Crundle, who's a resident of Rose Park. This research was quite conclusive, as was our research as well. So I thank the residents for volunteering their very professional, precious time to objectively engage and have those conversations with the community. I think that's a really, really good contribution from our community and a great connection as well that's been created. So I thank them. So just three things. I want to keep this brief. There are lots of lessons learnt in the past. This community centre ran under the lines for 33 years, then another 22 years under council systems. Lots of lessons learnt. We've read in our papers stories, experiences, unfortunate ones with cleaners turning up late at night, as we heard as well from the deputy. We've also got an award-winning concept for the redevelopment from John Lowe. It's a great design. It's been federally funded. partially, well, quite a lot of it actually, almost half. I think we can't get any better than that. We've had the officers who prepared the paper for us tonight, pages and pages where they've summarised all of the intense development work that's been done to develop a project to this point. Lots of workshops, site visits, consultations. And just thirdly, and I touched on this, is, you know, yes, the community want it. We've had great reach, but I just want to finish with what sums it up for me. And this came from a resident in our papers, and I'll quote, "Yes, this appears to be an excellent redevelopment, taking into consideration both the neighbours and senior citizens of the area. Congratulations for your forward thinking and caring for the older generation. Max and I cannot wait until it is finished. The council must be congratulated for the ideas they have to improve the area." That's all I can say, and I do hope you all support this development. Thank you.
I seek a seconder. There's no seconder. Councillor Jones, do you wish to speak or reserve?
I will reserve my right. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? Councillor Piggott.
Everyone's very shy tonight, aren't they? Must be the new presiding member. Certain intimidation, perhaps.
This is counting towards your speaking time.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, I can't support this for a couple of reasons. One is I do feel for a project of this size, the community consultation is actually particularly underwhelming. I'm not sure it's conclusive at all. We had 47 people respond, 20 of them are in favour, the other 27 have got a concern about it. Not fatal in all cases, but a concern about it. That's not exactly overwhelming support for this council to spend a chunk of federal money and a chunk of our money. The second is that it's another example that I think we've had a previous one, but it is an example where we're upgrading a facility, and you upgrade facilities so it can be used more often and perhaps for longer. And everything I read about people commenting about Dulwich Community Centre is that it's great to have it there, but I don't want it used any more because I don't want any more people parking in the streets, and I don't want it used any longer. And that is not, I don't think, the way that we should be spending community money against that background. We've got in the motion that we'll build it and then we'll do a parking and traffic survey. Well, one of my criticisms of the state government around the Norwood High redevelopment is that they spent $57 million project on that and they did not do any traffic survey or any traffic work as to what the impact of that project would be. And if that was a organisation in our community coming to our planning panel, I would hope we'd send them away and tell them to do it. And we haven't done it here. We are on a hope and a prayer that it'll be okay. If we're going to spend this money, I think people will want to use it. Well, it's great. They want to use it. But that'll mean they will drive their car there. They might want to use it at night. And that won't be good with the neighbours either. So it's frustrating. It is actually in the wrong place. There's no question about it. It came up in the deputation just now. Talking to the Catholic Church, fantastic. I don't know whether we've done that. Didn't get the answer, but there's no question that a community centre in Dulwich, yes, big tick. In Union Street, no. It is going to generate more traffic, more activity, and that is going to have issues for the local community, which we won't be able to solve retrospectively. They will just have to live with it. I just don't feel we should progress this project, and I will vote against it.
Thank you, Councillor Piggott. Councillor Hubel.
I have a question for administration who may or may not be able to answer this, and please also correct my math if I'm wrong, but I'm just seeing a disparity in the 47 people that responded to our survey. I'm comparing to the 49 people that responded to the ERA informal survey, but still give it credit. We had 20 out of 47, round about 40% support, whereas the Eastern Residents' responses got an 83% support. That just seems statistically, staggeringly, and quite alarming difference. So I'm just wondering whether there was any insight that administration might give.
Thank you, Councillor Hewell. Through the chair, I'd like to pass that question on to Ms Kennedy.
Through the chair, thank you. I think part of the disparity could be in the question that was asked. So the question that the Eastern Residents Association asked was, do you support this centre being redeveloped? We didn't ask that question. We said, we're planning to redevelop the centre. Do you have any comments on the proposed designs? Which is quite a different question. And I think the fact that we asked that question and not whether people supported it or not was shown in the feedback that we received. Some people did opt to just provide feedback to say, yep, we like it, thanks for doing this. Others provided suggestions, questions, comments, a range of things, as you can see in the results there.
Thank you, Councillor Hugh. We'll have Councillor Lemon next.
Thank you, Chair. I take people to paragraph 20 on page 53 of this. So it's paragraph 20 of this particular report. And it'll take us back in time to April 2021, when we decided as a council, we had an administrative report that suggested that we go out to the community and ask these three questions. Are we going to, in terms of the Dulwich Community Centre, renovate and address compliance issues? Are we going to demolish and replace with a park or a nature play area? Or are we going to dispose of and allocate the funds elsewhere in local Dulwich? We decided not to actually go ahead with that, and we decided to stampede to redevelopment without asking the community, and I will always hark back on this. So in that sense, I endorse everything that Councillor Pigott said, and then some. The fact that there should be a community centre in Dulwich is not in question here. None of us would actually say no. What I'm actually saying, and what Councillor Pigott said, is it's in the wrong place. It doesn't matter how much money we spend. What we've got there is one of the narrow streets. It doesn't matter. We're never going to have enough parking. It's always going to be a refurbished somebody's house, which is not, it's retrofitted. It's not fit for purpose. It's not built like Glenunga Hub was built. So it'll always be not quite right. It can never be activated like any of the other community centres we've got. And in 15 years, 10 or 15 years, we'll be having this conversation here again after we've spent $1.4 million building something that's never going to be utilised up to the cost that we're spending. And let's not forget, we've already spent $70,000 to get to this point in time. The reason we have not had anything definitive from the community to date, from my point of view, is we've always talked about the Dulwich Community Centre in terms of where it is. We didn't do what we should have done. We made a mistake. We didn't go out to the community and say, shall we relocate that community centre somewhere else? Because that may well have given us something definitive. It may well have, the people of Dulwich and Rose Park and Toorak Gardens and wider Burnside would most likely have said, yes, let's look at a better place. And that better place, there are spots in Rose Park and in Dulwich that are better places than this, where we can spend $1.4 million, and in 15, 25, 30, 40 years, that community centre would still be being used. It would have a history of use in that area. This little side street with a refurbished house and a wooden floor and inadequate parking and a not activated space, because let's face it, it's not a senior citizen centre. It's not there for the older generation. It's a community centre, which is across the board.
That's time, Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I won't support it.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, this has been a divisive issue amongst the residents and also within this council for 12 years, I've been told. But my memory goes back in the first year I was a councillor, and we had a tour of the Dulwich Community Centre. The only good thing about it was the floor at the back, if I remember. The rest of it was an absolute disgrace. So that's why we moved in this direction. Now, some people in the council have not changed their mind on this since they've been on council. However, I'm keen, because I think this, because we had so few people responding, and I think it's one of two things. Either they're sick and tired of us asking them the same questions. I'm sounding like Councillor Jones now. Or council, make a call on this, please. I just can't believe we had 430 responses on the dog park, and we only had 40 odd on the Hazelwood Park fencing. We had more from the era people and our own survey. And if you drill down with our own survey, you probably find that more than 50% would have supported the plans. Now, some people had gave some feedback where, if you did this rather than that, we would support it. So I do believe more than 50% did support. So as regards parking, if you read the page 104 onwards, you get some people who think there's no issues with parking. I live nearby, I'll put up with it. And others say it's a diabolical situation. We are getting extra 4 car parks in the front, so that's obviously going to help somewhat. And the other one about controlling activity, I just want to take that point that Councillor Pickett made. We can control the activity if we have a refurbished development here. It will attract, I believe, a certain number of people, but we can say only between these times. So don't think it's going to be from 9 in the morning to 9 at night. All right. Now, my last point, if I can remember what my last point was. Oh, that's right, a question, if I could, Chair. The 700,000 that we have been allocated by the previous federal government, are we at risk if we decide against this development tonight?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. We will be at risk. We have not negotiated a position with the previous federal government about carrying it forward should this project be delayed. So that is definitely a risk.
Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Worship. I have a question about the issues raised in the consultation process. So if we go to paragraph 27 on page 57, the issues raised were attendance and hours of use, noise, parking and traffic congestion and privacy. And para 28 says that while the above responses will be provided to members of the community to demonstrate how concerns have been addressed, it's further noted that nearby neighbours will also have the opportunity to provide further feedback and comment to resolve any residual concerns through the development approval process. Am I missing something, or is that the old development process? Because I'm not sure that they are able to, is this the level of development that would allow them to do that? Could that please be clarified? Because I'm not sure about that's capacity.
Thank you, Councillor Davey.
Through the chair, I'll pass the question on to Mr. Heinrich.
Thank you, and through the chair, there is a planning application lodged for this development. However, it's on hold pending the outcome of this decision. If the council proceeds with it, the planning application will proceed, and there will be a public notification process associated with that, and the decision will be made in the end by the CAEP.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. I don't have anybody else on my list, except I do now. Councillor Hubel.
I have a question. I'll ask a question. I wasn't sure whether I was going to speak or ask, but I'll ask. The DDA compliance, obviously, is that elephant in the room no one's really talking about anymore, because the centre as it stands is not compliant. Is that correct? Yep. And a follow-up, if the chamber were to knock this back tonight, where do we stand in terms of the DDA compliance and risk there?
Through the chair, I'll pass it to Ms. Kennedy.
Through the chair, if memory serves, when we first looked at this back in around 2016, we looked at a number of different options in terms of what we could do at Dulwich. And one of the options was basically, what do we need to do in terms of a bare minimum to bring it up to DDA compliance, etc. I can't remember the cost of that off the top of my head, but it wasn't insubstantial, and given what the market's doing today is probably a little bit more again. So the short answer is, if council opted not to proceed with the development as it currently stands, there would still need to be some investment made to bring that facility up to DDA compliance if we intend to keep it.
Thank you, Councillor Hubel. Councillor Jones.
Oh my God. If we have stampeded into this decision over 12 years, I'd hate to see something that we were dragging our feet on. This has got a very small community response. As we've seen from one of our answers on notice, Burnside now has a population of 46,036 people. We've had 40-odd responses to our community consultation. The residents' groups had 40-odd. It's a vanishingly small percentage. Why don't the people sitting round this table take a decision tonight to say, yes, let's get on with this? Now, we get this stuff about it's not in the right, but we like a community centre, but it's just in the wrong place. This is just yet a new delaying tactic from people who want to demolish it. Look at the map of Rose Park, Dulwich, Tarak Gardens. There's no better location. There's nowhere in the area that's not going to have traffic issues. Councillor Henschke knows it. Councillor Cornish, who has previously voted to go ahead, knows it. The East Residents Association knows it. Everybody knows it. We should go ahead and do it. We've got $700,000 from the Commonwealth to do it. What kind of flipping idiots are we to be saying we've got to upgrade our centre because it's not compliant, as Councillor Hubel has pointed out, but we're going to say we're going to turn down $700K from the feds? Are we idiots? I just cannot believe that we would say we're not going to do this. So, I tend to stick to Beaumont Ward issues, but this is one where I get a lot of people who live in Beaumont Ward phoning me up saying, we use the Dulwich Community Centre, it needs some work, it hasn't had the love and attention, will you please, council, spend some money and bring it up to the standard of other community centres? We support Eastwood Community Centre. We voted to start refunding them last year. We voted to give them money again. We are never going to have enough community space. We know that our population is going to grow by 2,000, 3,000 houses in the next 20 years. Probably going to be living in apartments. These are the people who need spaces outside their big detached homes. And this is a service council should be offering. I hope you'll support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Turnbull.
Through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Not as eloquent as you. I'll say mine very quickly. So much consultation, can't do any more. Number 2, many years to get to this point. Great design, number 3. Number 4, the recommendation allows for parking and traffic study following the completion of the centre. And the last one is, Eastwood is our Cinderella at the ball. Dulwich is Cinderella sitting by the fire with the embers. Let's just sort it out and let's just do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Lemon, you have a question?
Yes, I do. I have a question of administration, if I may. The $700,000 that's Commonwealth money, that could be renegotiated to be spent in the Dulwich area, should we decide?
Through the chair, I believe it's for this specific project. We will have to negotiate with them, but we don't know what the outcome of that would be. There is a risk.
I've been advised otherwise.
I don't believe so. I believe it is specifically for this project.
I have no one else on my list, so I'll return to Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all. Thank you, councillors. We need schools, community land for a range of community needs like bowling greens, tennis courts, community hubs, schools. Yes, they are competing pressures, but we're here to help residents, and this is a practical and solutions-based approach. The CEO, the administration have worked very hard to come up with this practical solutions-based approach, and we need to deliver this for their communities. 3 terms of council to make a decision? No, I don't think so. Councillor Jones and the other councillors supporting this? No, we need to move on and do this service. It is so important, it has to be done now. Did you know that the federal government has a national program being at the highest level in this country to enable social infrastructure to be built? And why? Why do we need social infrastructure like this redevelopment? So we can move away from the rotting curtains and the air conditioner that's making so much noise the neighbour behind can't stand it anymore and is really welcoming this redevelopment, and we read that in here. Yes, we need to do this development because people need to connect. If we don't have people connecting, guess what? People stay in their homes, there's isolation, health is impacted. And dare I raise this? Domestic violence. Terrible thing in our society. We don't see much of it really out there in our wonderful Rose Park, Dulwiches and socio-economic areas, but it's there. I spoke to the Commissioner, the previous Commissioner of this topic, and he assured me we need to have social infrastructure, and this is a step towards a progressive council that will connect people and raise awareness for all. I implore that you support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henschke. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? The motion's carried. Division's been called. All those in favour, please stand. From my right to left, those in favour, Councillor Henschke, Councillor Turnbull, Councillor Dawes, Councillor Jones, and Councillor Hubel. Those against, Councillor Davey, Councillor Piggott, and Councillor Lemon. The motion's carried. I now propose that we take a 10-minute break. Councillor Dawes is moving it. May I have a seconder? Councillor Davey, all those in favour. Thank you very much, and we'll return in 10 minutes, at 9:14. We'll move on now to item 11.8, and I have Councillor Davey. You have the call. And that's Annual Bylaw Management and Enforcement Statistic
Thank you,
Report.
Honourable, Your Worship. I move in accordance with the recommendation, and I just had one question, and thanks to the staff for compiling all of the data and the stats for us. I was fascinated with the one piece of information was dumping of rubbish. And that is on page 343 at 15.3.24. Huge increase in dumped rubbish that we're, across the years. And I wondered if there's any reason for that, and how we get rid of it, and have we issued any expiations or any fines at all? Thank you.
Through the chair, I'll pass that question on to Mr. Heinrich.
And before you answer that, can I have a seconder for the motion?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Councillor Piggott, thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. Apologies, can you repeat the section number so I can refer to that?
Page 343, it's section 15.3.24, litter.
Litter. Through the chair, there does seem to have been a reasonably marked increase this year. It's an interesting question. I don't have an answer in relation to why that is, what's causing people to litter more. I mean, I can take that on notice and provide a response via email at a later time.
Could I ask a follow-up question? And if we could also have the information of the locations and the type of rubbish, that would help help my understanding of that incremental increase. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Is there any further debate on item 11.8? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Move on to item 11.9. That's nominations for members of Greater Adelaide Regional Organisation of Councils. That's the Garrick, and we've got Councillor Lemon.
I pulled this for no reason that I can recall.
I think I made you. So we're required to submit a nomination for councillors to Local Government Association for the position of member for Garrock.
Or not.
Or not. Would anybody like to nominate anyone or nominate themselves? If not, then Councillor Lemon, because I suggest then that we nominate nobody.
I suggest that we nominate no one. This is unfortunate. I read this paper. To actually put forward a nomination to Garrett within 6 weeks of going into...
I need a motion, Councillor Lemon.
Oh.
So is so the motion would be that Council does not submit a nomination.
We nominate no one. To put forward someone to go on Garrock 6 weeks before we go into caretaker might be putting forward someone to go on Garrock, potentially. Nothing. It's the timing is all wrong. It's totally all wrong. There's no one that can guarantee they're even going to stand again, let alone be re-elected. So I think this has come untimely. And I think for us to nominate, we could nominate someone if somebody was interested, but it appears not. So I think we should just nominate no one. That would be my motion.
Thank you. I seek a second to Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I endorse all of those comments, and I was going to suggest that we suggest an amendment that we register our concern about the timing of the request for nominations. You don't think that's reasonable? Okay, I agree that we shouldn't nominate anyone. I think the timing is appalling. The LGA, for whatever reason, or whoever organises all of this, to put it out just a few weeks before the local government elections for 4-year terms is quite ludicrous. So I don't think it's tenable to nominate anyone at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Dawes.
Yeah, I think the key here is paragraph 17 where I'm sure it's Martin has tried to explain how it works, and for reasons that I don't understand, they think it can work this way. But I'm supportive of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Councillor Henschke.
Yeah, I'd like to know why the timing is as such. A question through Chair for the administration. Thank you.
Through the Chair, the timing has always been like this. We have argued in the past or provided feedback and suggested the timing be changed, but they've always stuck to this timing.
All right, if there's no further debate, Councillor Lemon, happy for me to put the motion? I'll then put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. We now move to item 11.10, and I have Councillor Piggott moving the Mayor's activity report. Oh no, sorry, we've already passed that. My apologies. We'll move to 11.11, the Chief Executive's Officer report, and I have Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Your Honourable Worship. I move in accordance with the recommendation to receive and note the report and increase the full-time equivalent cap by 1, consistent with the resolution to fund the upkeep and maintenance of the Year 1 planting projects completed through the 2021-2022 citywide understory planting program. That's all been justified in the report. I just had a query about staffing for those, or staffing levels. We keep being provided with about 12 vacant positions that are currently being recruited, and I just wondered if we're making any progress on recruiting. And then I also wondered in paragraph 21 what HOAP is, where there are introduction sessions for work health and safety. Thanks.
Through the Chair, first part of the question, yes, progress is being made on the recruitment. A number of interviews have already been held for some of the positions, and some of them are currently being finalised. So progress is being made in that space. With regards to HOPE, it's a well-being app. So we've recently introduced an app for staff which monitors their psychological well-being and health with regards to the workplace, the work environment. And it's a really good sort of platform for us to just monitor our staff and their well-being and just keep on top of it. Oh. I might ask Mr. Spearman if he knows what it stands for.
Through the Chair, interestingly, I looked into this because I was curious myself, and I cannot find on their website or any of the information what it actually stands for.
Maybe it's just an error and it's supposed to be spelled H-O-P-E. Is there any further debate on this item?
I have another question.
Oh, Councillor Davey.
I just have a follow-up question. Paragraph 31 about the early planning sessions on the Marriotteville Precinct Master Plan. Is it possible for the local ward councillors to be involved in that as well? They're having discussions with Norwood, but nothing's been held with us, and I'd just like to, at this stage, perhaps be involved, and wondered if that's possible, please.
We'll take that as a comment, Councillor Davey, or you'd like to be involved, yeah.
Through the Chair, I'll certainly pass that on to Mr. Cant and provide him with the feedback that you'd like to be involved.
Is there any further debate on this item? Councillor Piggott?
Do you have a seconder yet? Have we done the seconder thing? Seconder. I've got a question anyway.
No one. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Piggott?
Only if you let me ask a question.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm happy to second it. If I could ask a question, though, in regard to FTEs, I might have it wrong, but I thought for most of the time on council, I thought we were on 163 point something as the FTE cap. And we now, I think, are up to 169 or something, which I think it's a bit, I'm sure you can fill in the gaps. Am I right, and how did we get there? I know we've had 2 or 3 in the last tranche and perhaps this one. But, yeah, am I right in that? Have we moved by 6 in the last 6 months?
Through the chair, I believe in May we presented a report to council which required a cap increase of, I believe it was 3.86, 3.66 or 3.86, and tonight we've got an additional 1 FTE, so the total increase would have been around 4.86 from that 169.3 that we, or 163.9 that we had previously held to.
And what are we now?
So currently 169.48.
Right, okay. I might ask you outside the meeting to reconcile that for me. As a follow-up question, if I may, was back when we were looking at the budget and we were talking about where, you know, casuals and those sorts of people were sitting, and perhaps the appropriateness, perhaps even of an FTE cap. I understood there was going to be some work done for council in regard to this whole issue. Is that still the case?
Through the chair, yes it is. What we're intending to do from this financial year is provide a total cost for labour, and what we are asking is to be provided with a cost for all our casual employees, and we'll convert that into a head count. So when we present an FTE count in the CEO report every month, we will convert it for casuals as well. So it'll be casual plus salaried staff included.
Right.
But broken up so we can see the difference.
Right. Thank you. Look forward to it.
Is there any other further questions or any debate? In which case, I'll go back to Councillor Davey. Do you wish to sum up, or are you happy for me to put the motion? I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. We then move on to item 12, which is questions on notice. And the answers to those questions have been provided to you via email, and then they'll be uploaded with the agenda. We'll then move to item 13 and 13.1, which is a motion on notice, additional street lighting along Clark Street, Wattle Park. Councillor Turnbull, you have the call.
Thank you, Chair. And give notice of my intention to move the following motion. The Council acknowledges the request of a local resident to investigate additional street lighting along Clark Street, Wattle Park. Acknowledges that Clark Street has been deemed compliant with AS 1158, and there are no current plans to install additional lighting in this area consistent with Council's public lighting policy. Number 3, noting that increased lighting in some areas can be a divisive issue, undertakes consultation with residents of Clark Street to determine A, whether the residents of the street would like additional street lighting installed, and B, if so, where they would like it. Number 4, that report be returned with the results of the consultation to enable Council to determine how to proceed. And please might I add, and this report be submitted to Council by a date. It has no date for this one, if that could go in too, say, before caretaker mode, or I don't know the date. End of August? No, before the end. Must be late. It won't be that done, will it? I'll leave that to administration, but if we could have a date put in, that would be really good.
24th of August.
Is that enough time? No, not really, is it?
Why don't you put as soon as possible?
That's
Or
impossible.
as soon as reasonably practical.
Okay,
Yeah.
leave it out then, thank you. Okay, so the Burnside councillors were recently contacted by a resident of Clark Street, Wattle Park, with respect to the issue of street lighting there. Clark Street's a dead-end street that runs in an easterly direction into the foothills. At its eastern end, it has a loop road with a small, well-vegetated park within the loop. The resident said that he represents a number of local residents. They're concerned about nighttime gatherings, the gangs of young people, and associated noisy and antisocial behaviour. Police have attended a number of incidents. The request from this resident was for an improved level of street lighting to be installed by council. Discussions with senior council staff show that the street lighting in Clark Street complies with the relevant Australian standard, and that there's no current plans by council to upgrade it. So at this point, there are no planned options, no cost estimates. There's also the question of whether enhanced street lighting would resolve the residents' issue. Also the possibility that some residents may not want a brighter street lighting, so more information is needed. So my motion is that council undertakes a survey of the local residents to, 1, determine if they support improved street lighting in Clark Street, and 2, if so, the design options, costs and siting of any new street lights. I ask that you support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. Councillor Dawes?
Yes, I'll second. I'll speak now. This reminds me of the Sky Lookout in the past, where there's been misbehaviour, can I say that, rather than giving them any sort of term. Now, we've closely liaised with administration on this one, and this is the way that administration believes that we can go to the next step. We don't know what the next step's going to be. Obviously, the police have been called. There's been break-ins in the area. As with most streets in Burnside, you've got lighting down one side and the lighting finishes at the end of the cul-de-sac. It's right up in amongst the hills. It's a lovely area, actually, Clark Street, Stonyfell. It's on the other side of Gandy's Gully. So what we're seeking is like consultation, first of all, with the other residents. I think there's a belief that they think extra lighting would be the way to go. Then from that consultation, we'll get a report, and from that we'll know how to proceed. But I can sense this will be something for the next council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Councillor Hubel?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, I support this. Often we do get residents approaching us where there has been a part of the community that's kind of fallen through the cracks with policies. It happens with footpaths, verges, these kind of things, and I always like kind of rewarding when residents come to us and say, hey, look, this is something that we don't think is quite right. Council policy isn't really covering this at the moment, as it's not, and I think it's right to look into these sorts of things. So I certainly support that.
I don't have anyone else on my list, so Councillor Turnbull, would you like to speak again?
Could I just ask a question?
Yes, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, is it possible that we could consider people-activated lighting if, as you say, the problem's part of groups gathering there, whether in the survey the administration could consider person-activated lighting, which would that tends to deter people if they go to an area. So I just wondered if that's something that might be viable.
I'm guessing the administration will take that on notice and consider that as part of the report.
That's part of the survey,
Yeah, great, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Lemon?
Yes, I have a question too. This park at the end of the street, does anybody know whether that actually has a curfew on it? Is that open at all times, or has that got a sign that says sunrise to sunset, or what?
Through the chair, I'll pass that question over to Ms. Kennedy.
Through the chair, it's my understanding that this is actually a cul-de-sac. Hold on 2 seconds. Yep. So through the chair, yes, this is a cul-de-sac. So it's not a part. Oh, there's at the sort of top of it, behind the houses, there's a park area, but not directly in that cul-de-sac itself, if you like.
That's private, isn't it?
Is that private?
It's on the way back from the Kensington Lookout, so it's probably overflowed.
Yeah, the closest reserve would be Gandy's Gully Reserve, but that's quite a distance from the end of this street. Yeah. It's a cul-de-sac.
Perhaps Councillor Turnbull can elaborate that or add any further comments on that when she sums up.
Please, Mark, just clarify that the cul-de-sac's got this.
because I'll speak.
Sort of a little park.
It's all right, you can tell it when you...
Yeah, when you come to sum up, maybe you can describe that a little bit better. Councillor Lemon, did you have a second question?
No, I'd like to speak to it.
Great.
I'll speak. I'm happy to support this, and I thank Councillor Turnbull for actually bringing a motion on notice that requests a report, because I think that's a really sensible way of going ahead with motions on notice. I think that then we get much more information. The reason I'm speaking is that we're looking to find a solution to a problem that's been brought to us by residents, and I actually think if the problem is loitering, I don't know that street lighting is going to change that, and there's not a lot that we at council can do. So if it is actually, I think we need to make some sort of effort to find out what the issue actually is. If the issue is whoever lives at the end of the cul-de-sac has got teenagers and they're about to leave home, that's one thing. If it is actually people loitering because it's a dark and quiet area, then I felt for a long time that we need to have a better relationship with the police so that they can come and seek these areas and move people on. Because while lighting, we might decide that we do want more lighting and residents are happy about lighting, that's not necessarily going to fix what the issue may or may not be, because we only know about this because a resident has come to us. So, and there's been a few of these over the years, and I think we need to investigate what it is that is disturbing people. I mean, there's that one as part of Pembroke where people are in the car park that we had at the last couple of council meetings ago. And really, I think it would be good if we had a better relationship with the police where we could ring them up, you know, when these things are happening, and get them to come and have a look and move people on, because I think that's got a much better outcome in terms of local residents, because they'll feel safer that the police in this state are actually working for their best interests. So that's the only points that I'd make, but I am happy to support this.
Yeah, the administration would like to make a comment.
Thank you. Through the chair, just to clarify the point of pedestrian activated street lighting. We cannot actually do pedestrian activated street lighting because it's distracting to cars, so it's quite dangerous. We can do pedestrian activated lighting, but just not street lighting, but the motion's asking for street lighting. Thank you.
I don't have anybody else apart from Councillor Turnbull. Do you have a question, Councillor Turnbull, or would you like to, are you happy to sum up now?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon, for that excellent idea about liaising with the police. They have called the police several times because they had a car broken into, one they tried to break into, and a home was broken into. So the police know that area. And this little area is, the cul-de-sac has sort of an island in the middle, and you could fit about 10 people. Apparently there's a gang of 10. They all sit on these rocks in the middle by the trees and annoy. Misbehave. And people with young children are starting to say it's not fair, etc., etc. So that's what the whole thing came about, through one resident who went round and asked all the others. So I'm hoping you'll support the motion of a report, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. I'll now move to item 13.2, and it's a motion on notice, Beaumont Common Management Plan. Councillor Hubel, you have the call.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I think the Chamber will be aware of the goings-on in the Common of late. It's been a few weeks now, but there was a flurry of opposition when some work was recently done in the Common related to understory angel plantings, which is the direction the Council is going in. And there was an instance where there were two tree areas that were actually linked up by council staff because of poor grass growth in the area. So council staff identified that as an appropriate way of linking understories and creating I guess, an island of bark chip mulch, which from what I understand was intentionally done per the understory initiatives, and that really raised a lot of concern from residents who were very surprised by the work, who saw it as deliberate. They saw it as a deliberate move by council to actively reduce grass in that area of the common, and has just led to a great amount of ambiguity. I think it was probably something that tipped the donkey's capabilities. It was the straw that broke the donkey's back. So Councillor Jones and I responded to a lot of residents with their concerns. We talked a lot with Mr. Cant and his team about what was actually going on, and there was it took us a while to really wade through what was going on, but what it really came down to was the presence of uncertainty and ambiguity about what the future direction of what council's intentions with the common as a reserve actually is. With the idea of balancing, and I asked a question on notice a few meetings ago, that was really looking at, okay, well, where are we sitting in terms of balancing recreation in this reserve versus biodiversity? Both things we value, but where one tips over the other side, someone loses. And I must admit, I've started walking Dolly in the common a lot more often. I've made myself a lot more present. I've spoken to people about things, and to be perfectly truthful, where the emails we got were all very much against that activity. I encountered a lot of people that I spoke to, and this is of course informal, anecdotal stuff, but there were a lot of views that actually they are in favour of the bark chipping. So there is more than one side to this, but I think the idea of implementing a management plan, what we want to do is just get rid of ambiguity. We want to work with, co-develop this with residents, and this is not people whose front yards are the common. This is the area at large, to co-develop where do we want this reserve to go, what do we want this reserve to be, and I think getting these sorts of things down on paper will just ease a lot of insecurity on both perspectives. So I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this and hope for your support.
Seeker seconder, Councillor Jones.
Yes, I second. I will reserve my right.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question for administration in part 2 of the motion. I just want to understand what that means from our perspective. Does it mean, say for instance, the Q1 budget review comes in and it's so bad that we've got a negative result? Does this mean that the allocation isn't made, or it's going to be made whatever?
Through the chair, that means that it's going to be made irrespective of what the budget review 1 looks like.
Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Councillor Turnbull.
Yeah, of course. I did ask for definition of a management plan. Through the chair, sorry. I did ask for definition, and it provides guidance as how a place will be maintained over time, whereas a master plan is a future vision for the site. My big concern is the management plan will turn into a master plan. So page 338, paragraph 14. This approach gives residents the opportunity to have a real voice on a public space which they are passionate and knowledgeable about. Good-o. What if the co-design approach, which in my view is terrific for a master plan, tells us the majority want a toilet block and a playground, a sand pit and a dog gym, a bike track, a running track, etc. And it's such a lovely, peaceful place up there. I really think that the Burnside Council and the hard-working people at the depot do an excellent job in maintaining this area without formalising it. I'd rather see the 20,000 allocated for the preparation of a plan spent on plantings and maintenance, so I won't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. Could you just turn your microphone off there, Councillor Turnbull? Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mr Presiding Member. I just have a question first. Is it not possible for us, the staff who know this area well, to draw up a management plan themselves without having to go out to tender for a $20,000 one to be drawn up? Is that saying we need external consultant to do the job?
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll pass that question on to Ms Kennedy, please.
Through the chair, the $20,000 estimate, my understanding, is for a couple of things. One is for consultation activities. So, as Councillor Hubel alluded to, there's been some concern around how the reserve has been managed, and the intent, I think, behind some of this was to give the local residents a chance to be involved in how that reserve is managed, maintained going forward. So some of it was for consultation and some of it was for things like surveys, some landscape architecture advice, etc., if there are minor improvements and that sort of thing that fall out of that co-design approach.
Thank you. I'm in support of this, although I'm a bit worried that I know there has to be a bit of consultation, so a survey would seem reasonable. But it is, I thought that the Beaumont Common had some conditions associated with it from when it was bequeathed to the Burnside community by Sir Samuel Davenport many moons ago. And I think that I understand from my time on council that precludes any constructions like toilets and play spaces and things like that, which is very fortunate for Beaumont Common. But I still think, having walked my dog there many times, because it's a lovely, lovely place, I agree with the residents who've raised concerns that we need grass. I mean, we need the grass to be able to walk through the common and admire all the beautiful biodiversity work and all of the activity and work that the staff do, to be able to get through with our dogs, for kids to kick footballs, for people to have picnics. And also grass is still a very good environmental asset because it actually converts CO2 to oxygen and puts it back into the atmosphere, coming back to basics like that again. So I think we are at risk of getting our mulching practices a bit out of kilter with the areas that are currently grassed. So I think this is really good, timely plan to do, to actually have a look at this and see what we can do to make sure it's all balanced and that the community who live nearby are, and more broadly, are happy with it. So it's not to negate any of the wonderful biodiversity work and activity that's already done there, which is fantastic.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Henschke.
Thank you. Well, quite a few of my questions were kind of answered by the time I got to me, but still have one question through the chair, please, to the administration. It sounds like that it's, 1.3 says we need to balance recreational needs with environmental priorities. So I didn't realise there was a threat there. I mean, this is about the mulch and, is this a park that's going to be all native, or are we talking about more recreational needs happening here? I'm not too clear. And also, is this park just classified as a biodiversity place and that's it? And no concrete, etc.
So,
have we got policies in place that deal with it already, I guess is what I'm asking.
So what was the question, Councillor Henschke?
Well, firstly, the main question is, 1.3 refers to balanced recreational needs. It sounds like there's a pressure in Beaumont Common about recreational needs with environmental priorities.
So
is that the case?
Let's ask that question first. So is there a pressure, is there a desire for more recreational activities in Beaumont Common?
Through the chair, I'll pass that question on to Ms Kennedy.
Through the chair, I am not aware of any particular pressure on active recreational needs, if you like. However, I think and please correct me if I'm wrong, Councillor Hubel, because this is your motion. I think the intent there was looking at balancing environmental and, you know, the use of the space. So people walking through, they're enjoying that space, as is the case with any management plan that's developed.
And did you have a second question, Councillor Henschke?
Yes, thank you. So we have a number of policies through the chair. Is Beaumont Common got a special classification that it's a native common, end of story, and that's how we manage it?
And through the chair, Beaumont Common has its own section in the Local Government Act, which sets out some limitations and restrictions. In addition, all our policies do apply to the Beaumont Common as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor Henschke. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Perhaps I could just give some context in response to Councillor Turnbull's question about management plan v master plan. There is no plan for bike tracks or anything like that. The context of this is Beaumont Common is probably the best preserved piece of remnant grey box grassy woodland in the Adelaide metro area. Obviously, Sir Samuel Davenport created the common, gave it to the villagers of Beaumont in perpetuity, and there was a lot of clearing of that woodland. It was grassed. There are exotic trees. There's some magnificent ficuses in there. There are restrictions under the Local Government Act because Davenport set up a trust. One of the trustees was Beaumont Council, Burnside Council rather. As other trustees died off, Burnside Council refused to appoint new trustees, so it took control of it itself. That led to all kinds of problems when the council said, oh, we could put a bowling club on the common, or we could put a swimming pool. And people arced up, and eventually the Local Government Act was changed, so it's basically restricted to what you could do with it. So the management plan is trying to balance the biodiversity of the grey box grassy woodland with the recreation of let's have grass that kids can run around and you can walk your dogs on. And what we want is a management plan that local people can have some input to say what is an appropriate balance between the two. Because there'd be some people who'd be quite happy to say, let's have it all remnant woodland. And then there are people, particularly who live around it, say, I spent $7 zillion on my house on the common, and I want it looking green. I want it to be a sort of lush tropical paradise. I don't want these bloody natives on it. So there's some degree of balance, and that's really what we're trying to achieve between us as a council and the people who use the common as to what's an appropriate balance. I think the council has been more pushing towards the biodiversity, and we get biodiversity reports every year, and we applaud them and say carry on, and so they have been. And we're just getting a bit of pushback from the residents who you'll have seen will have been troubling your inbox as well as Councillor Hubel's and mine. So we're trying to come to an equitable solution. So I hope you'll support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I'm not sure about this. I've got 3 issues. One is, and thank you very much, Councillor Jones, for that background. I learnt stuff tonight. And I've actually had relatives that lived on the common, and I learnt stuff. Burnside Council's managed that place for a long time, and it's done a really good job with the Beaumont Common because it is actually in a lot of ways unchanged from when I was a babe, really. And I don't mean a babe in arms, I mean, you know, a bit older. However, what I would say is I'm not sure about the grass. See, grass for me is not what I would call, Councillor Davey, environmentally beneficial in a lot of ways. It requires, to maintain grass, you need water. Right now we've got winter grass and that's fine. It's raining, it's green. You know, come the middle of November, it'll be brown, it'll be gone and it'll be dirt. And that's what a natural area actually has. So to actually keep planted grass alive there is maintaining, in my opinion, an artificial environment in a real sense. The second issue I've got is the $20,000 it's going to cost us to come up with a management plan. And again, I harp back to how I have in the past, that we're eating into our savings targets. And in fact, we started eating into our savings targets the day we adopted the budget. And so if every council meeting has $15,000 here and $20,000 there, by this time next year, we will have actually just looked back over our shoulder to a deficit. And I'm really concerned about that, because 20 grand for a management plan, where you're actually doing, well, we'll get to my third bit, is a lot of money, and we haven't even really begun to spend this year's budget. But we're already spending it. Like, I have reservations. But my third issue is the people that started complaining about this, let's face it, in a population of 46,000 people for Burnside, it was like a group of 10. I mean, seriously, we're going to spend money for a group of 10 people that probably live nearby. Now, you know, to me, what we're doing in this motion is creating a solution for a problem that doesn't exist, really. The park is well maintained. We've been maintaining it really well for a long time. We've had a few people that have got really quite paranoid about a few barrel loads of mulch that have gone in at this time of the year when it's been very wet, so it doesn't get soggy, muddy and everything else. And we've got professional grounds people that actually made the decision to do that. So really, the parks are provided for the people, but they are owned by us. And in the end, it's us that make the decision about this, not the neighbours to the reserve. And while they're the main users, mostly, I don't know that we should be paying $20,000 to make them feel good about living next door to the Beaumont Common. I really don't think that. So they're my reservations.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. Councillor Davey.
I have a question about water usage. Is the whole common irrigated, including the trees and the understory plantings and the grass? Just to clarify.
Through the chair, I believe it is, but Ms. Kennedy, if you could confirm.
Through the chair, I have been informed that yes, the Beaumont Common is irrigated. However, that will need replacing and upgrading at some point.
Just to follow up. Just to follow up, so we don't differentiate between trees, plants, shrubs and the grass.
Through the chair, Ms. Kennedy, if I could pass that question on to you.
Sorry. Through the chair, I'm informed that the irrigation was put in place about 15 years ago, so it wasn't sort of separated into different areas. It's one irrigation system for the whole reserve. And given it is 15 years old, it will need redesigning at some point in the near future.
There are no further cues, so Councillor Hubel, can you please sum up?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for your debate. And look, this is something that has really popped up quite quickly, quite recently. So do appreciate the view that this is a reactionary undertaking. However, this idea for the plan, for a management plan, is a direction that is actually endorsed by administration as a way of moving forward with the differing perspectives that we're having up there. And look, I personally, you know, Paul Hubel's perspective is I like to put my faith in the administration and the experts that we employ to do the work and carry out the directions of the council. But but part of our job is also to listen to our residents that bring things to our attention and that say, look, the policies you've got in place, by and large, they're great, but they're not working here. Or maybe you just need to look at how they're working here. And that's the approach that I feel that it's creating a management plan as opposed to a master plan. We're not looking at redefining, we're looking at clarifying directions. So it's just as much us saying, this is what we are doing. This is the scope of works that we're undertaking, and there's no confusion as to there being nefarious approaches being made, which is a suspicion that I think unfairly residents have. And I have brought that up with the residents that, you know, that I think there's no, I defended the council to these residents saying, look, you know, there is no plan to do this. But, you know, if residents aren't clear and they're not aware of exactly what's going on in a particular area, I think it's up to us to clarify that. And look, it is unfortunate timing in terms of the money and in terms of the, you know, relying on a quarterly review to fund this. I understand that. I respect that point. And that quarterly reviews can be for rainy day things that pop up. Now this is popping up quite early, granted. But look, I think if we weren't going into caretaker mode, we'd probably hold off on this, and it probably could have waited a month or two and been brought up closer to the quarterly review when we could see whether things were there. But unfortunately, we've got this, you know, caretaker happening, and moving into planning seasons. There are works that are scheduled and that are due that administration have put on hold pending this motion tonight, and hopefully being able to, you know, create a plan that everyone can move forward confident that everyone is on the same page in terms of what work's being done. So I seek your support for this, and we'll leave it there. Thanks.
I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Move on to item 14, urgent or other business. Is there any other urgent or other business? Councillor Davey?
Just a question, if I may, thank you. To clarify the provisions for caretaker period, we have, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, 2 more meetings that are decision-making meetings of council, and after the end of August there are no more. We'll just be getting reports and things like that.
Through the chair, that is correct. You can still make some decisions, it just depends on what they are. There are certain restrictions through the caretaker provisions that councillors can't make, like policy decisions and material financial decisions, but there are some other decisions you can make. But you're correct, there's only 2 more meetings before caretaker kicks in.
Great. We have no confidential items, so councillors, I'd like to thank you for your attendance tonight and your debate, and particularly to the administration, and particularly Ms Kennedy for her many questions. Councillor Cornish, I know, sat through the entire meeting, so I'd like to acknowledge him, and thanks for my mum for coming as well. So I close this meeting at 10:04. Thank you.